It's great that we finally have our plugin fully working. However, there's one last major problem. Our plugin doesn't update. The only time our plugin will update is if we come on to our Badges plugin settings page and we click on the update button next to the username. However, it's unrealistic to have the user do this on a regular basis. So instead, we're going to automate the process of updating the feed. There are two basic ways we could approach this, one from the server side and one from the front end. With the server side approach, when someone lands on a page, we would check to see when the feed was last updated, see if it needs to be updated, do the updating, and then pass that updated profile onto the page. The problem here has to do with speed. We could see how long it takes when we manually click to update a profile, and if you have a really long feed like Mike the Frog, it would really slow down the page load time. With the front-end solution, when somebody visits a page, we load the full page with the most recent profile we have, and then we fire off an AJAX call to the server to tell the server to check to see if the profile feed needs to be updated. If it does, then it'll go ahead, update that feed, and have it ready for the next time that a page is loaded. The downside here is that there's a chance that someone would visit a page and not see the most absolutely recent to date profile. However, when we compare this with how much the server-side approach would slow down the page load time, this turns out looking like a much better solution. We would also have the ability later on, if we wanted to dynamically refresh a loaded page with the new profile information using AJAX. The first thing we have to do is come into our main plugin file and write out a refresh profile function. We'll come down till right after the get profile function, then we'll create a new function called WP Treehouse Badges _ refresh profile. The first thing that we'll need to do is pull in when the profile was last updated. We could do this by modifying some code we used before to get the profile. We'll copy this code, paste it into our function, and then instead of needing to get the profile, we'll get the value for last updated. Next, we'll set a variable for the current time. We're going to do this in the same way that we set the last updated function when we manually update our profile. We could see if we scroll all the way up and look inside of our Badges option page function, we could see that when we set the options for last updated, we set it equal to time. This gives us a Unix timestamp of the current time. This type of timestamp is great because it's all measured in seconds. This makes it really easy to distinguish times between two Unix timestamp records. So, next we'll come down and we'll create a variable called update difference. And we'll set it equal to the current time minus last updated. Now for this particular plugin, we're going to check if the feed was updated in the last 24 hours. So our conditional statement will say if the updated difference is greater than 24 hours, then go ahead and update the feed. To do this, we'll say if update difference is greater than 86,400, then go ahead and update the feed. This number is the number of seconds in a day. When we go to update the feed, we're really just going to be calling the getProfile function, which to do, we need the WP-Treehouse username. We could get this in the same way that we got last updated by copying this code, pasting it into our if statement, and changing the value to WP-Treehouse username. What we can do now is call the getProfile function and set the return value equal to options WP-Treehouse profile, which we'll then use to update the database. So we can copy our options here, paste it below, and change username into profile, and set this equal to our getProfile function, into which we'll pass the parameter of our WP-Treehouse username. Once we have that value set, we'll go ahead and redefine our last updated time to be equal to the current time on the server. Finally, we'll call our updateOption function, tell it that we want to update our WP-Treehouse badges options, and we'll pass in the variable of options. When we come down to the end of our function, we're going to write out the die function. We're doing this because when we call a function with AJAX, this will help the AJAX function know when the entire function has completed. Now what we have to do is take a couple steps that allow our front-end JavaScript to make AJAX calls directly to our plugin file. The first thing that we have to do is create a custom AJAX hook for our refresh profile function. The way we'll do this is come down under our function, create an add action, and the hook we'll create is WP_AJAX, which is common, and then WP-Treehouse badges refresh profile, which is a tag specifically unique to what we're trying to do here. We'll then copy and paste in the function that we want to be called and end the statement. It doesn't have to make perfect sense exactly what's going on here, but what we do need to know is that we have to create a custom hook for our AJAX function in order to make this accessible on the front end.